Hello, this is Unsung with GameLeap, and today we're providing you with a tier list for patch 13.19. Some of the highlights of this patch are nerfs to Briar, nerfs to Rek'Sai, buffs for Lee, and buffs for Jen. Make sure that you watch the full list as there are some surprising new picks popping up as we approach the end of season that you can use for free LP. Just to clarify, this tier list is the best for climbing from Iron to Diamond. If I were to rate these champions for their maximum potential in the hands of a professional, these lists would look a lot different. Our goal is to give you the best condensed list to impact your games on a new patch immediately, so you can get that LP and make your goals while still having fun. Let's go ahead and begin with top lane. Bruisers are still busted. I guess that's what happens when you buff literally all their items within a few patches of each other. The nerfs to Renekton's magic resist have, however, opened up a few counter picks in ranks below Diamond. Now Kayle, Mundo, Cho, and even Ornn have winning matchups into him. This means that we'll actually be dropping Rennek from Broken tier this patch and replacing him with Fiora. Fiora is hard to play, but she beats all of these HP stackers, does well into Bruisers, and can also opt into the Hullbreaker split push playstyle. Fiora rewards you for persevering. She also beats almost all of the other Broken tier champions, with Darius being the only real exception here. Once you're proficient at Fiora, she definitely has a good matchup into Darius, it just takes a lot of work. Aatrox is still Broken tier for good reason. He's easier to play than something like Fiora, has good carry potential, and provides a ton of CC even if you have a bad game. All of his bad matchups are out of meta or fringe picks, which leaves him as public enemy number 1. Please pick this champion up before the season ends. If you want an in-depth guide to all mechanics, tips, and tricks for any of the champions that you see on this list, head on over to GameLeap.com by clicking on the description box below. I've been working on the website for over 3 years, creating courses for people like you to use and abuse. If you want to pick up a champion in the shortest amount of time, there is no better resource to use. See you on the website. Darius retains his spot simply due to how much pressure he exerts on basically every cast of champion. He's good into tanks, into bruisers, into squishies, you get the idea. For this reason, Darius sits firmly in OP tier. Garen is our next pick for OP tier. Same as last patch. This champ doesn't show any signs of slowing down. His win rate compared to last patch has actually increased a good amount. He's easy to play, does a great amount of damage, and can build basically anything to counter any matchup. Go phase rush into bruisers and conquer into tanks. If you want to split push, then you can do the Trinity Force Hullbreaker build. If you want to skirmish, then you can go Stridebreaker into Deadman's Plate. Our final S+ pick goes to Camille. Camille has always been a strong pick, but recently her win rates are looking super good. Her matchups are getting better and better with carry tops being on the weaker end of things. Camille is back to shining as a high skill, high reward champion. She also does really well into Garen and Aatrox. She beats Garen and Aatrox in any tank while having access to strong scaling, good skirmish, and amazing split push potential. Sunder or Trinity Force, Ravenous Hydra, and Hullbreaker is the overpowered build on this champion, and it only takes one game of getting to this point to truly understand why. As far as champions on the weaker end of the spectrum, make sure that you definitely stay away from Cassante. If you haven't seen our 13.20 Might Save League video, go check it out now to find out why. Too long didn't watch, they're removing his combos, making him do way less damage, and quite frankly, turning him into a CC peel bot. Don't waste your time until the rework comes out. Jungle has seen a meta shakeup. Because of nerfs to Rek'Sai now, and J4 a few patches ago, Nocturne, like we predicted before, has reared his ugly head and come out on top as the new king of the jungle. This champion is free low no matter the rank. His ultimate is amazing for solo queue. His builds are diverse against every team. You can go lethality against squishies, and then bruiser against everything else. And he's an absolute menace for how easy he is to play compared to Rek'Sai. Bow before your new king, play this champion. Briar is our next strongest jungler on this list. Before you all freak out at me in the comments below, she got nerfed for a reason. Using Riot's own internal tools, August, her designer, came to the conclusion that she was OP and needed nerfs last patch. The designer is the one that shipped them. When she was put into the game, she had one of the lowest win rates ever, which quickly shot up to nearly 53% win rate overall as people learned her, plus a minor hotfix buff. Briar currently sits at an unhealthy 52% win rate in Emerald Plus. Look, if you like the champ and want to argue your heart out about her being super terrible, go for it. But the numbers lead to her being absolute menace. Play her the right way, either lethality with Eclipse or Duskblade, or Bruiser with Goredrinker, and you will understand why this champion has over a 50% ban rate. Hint, it's not because she's new. Abuse her while you can, she's getting nerfed again, for sure. Bel'Veth is next up on our list. This champion has been teetering on the line of overpowered and strong for a really long time. But with the buffs to Stridebreaker, people have figured her out. The problem with this champion before was that the meta was bad for her and her itemization had low synergies in her kit. Nerfs to Rek'Sai, Kha'Zix, J4, and the like have brought her back full force when you use the Kraken into Stridebreaker build. This champion has been terrorizing my games in Grandmaster for the last week, and she is consuming LP in lower ranks as well. Please play her so she gets nerfed, I am begging you guys. Her playstyle is a little bit awkward at first, but once we understand Q into 2 auto attacks into Q into 2 auto attacks, she's really easy to pick up. Her ban rate is only skyrocketing in lower ranks as well. And last up on our list is Kha'Zix. As it turns out, Duskblade is still really strong. The nerfs to tanky junglers and the comeback of carries have allowed the Mantis to mangle his way back in. This champ is fun to play, easy to understand, and super effective for deleting people in solo queue. Pick him up now, before the rune nerfs that are coming. Evelynn and Rengar are our honorable mentions here. The new carries have actually knocked Evelynn down, and Rengar is definitely on our radar. We'll see where he lands in the final tier list a week from now, so stay tuned for that. Mid lane is in a really cool spot right now. Mages still suck, but AP assassins are coming back, which is nice to see. This means that we'll actually get a little bit of agency in this role for once. The champions I've been talking about in the last few videos have really risen in presence and are starting to kind of shape the mid lane meta overall. Sylas, who as you know I've been ranting about for a while now, is our highest rated pick here. This champion boasts a massive 10% pick rate and 52% winner as a melee mid. The crown build is solid, but the traditional Everfrost build on Sylas is still the way to go. E Everfrost Q, E again for the easiest LP of your life. Not even his counters are enough to chain him. You guys need to play Sylas if you want LP. This champion is so insanely busted, you need to play him now. Vex has been moved down to our number 2 spot. She's still an absolute stone wall in a lot of matchups, has good engage for solo queue and amazing wave clear to stall games, but the meta has shifted around her. She hasn't gotten weaker at all. Vex simply does not have the amount of pressure that some of these other champions exert before level 6. Sylas is really good in skirmishes, Fizz is really good into skirmishes. Vex, however, is not insanely strong into these skirmishes. This has dropped her down from being public enemy number 1. Speaking of not weaker but meta shift, Neeko is also being knocked down a tier. She's still really strong, but not nearly as good as Fizz is becoming. He has good matchups into most of the meta mids at the moment, strong snowball against mages, and he's super fun to play to boot. Both Ludens and Rocket Belt are good on this champion, just make sure that you hit your R after level 6 and you'll win just about every fight. While like Sylas, Fizz does have the weakness of being a melee mid, champions like Orianna and Syndra rising in pick rate is really good for him. He's able to pick these champions and create leads for himself in order to snowball games. Orianna is our next pick on the list. Ori's damage has been buffed over and over and over again, making her a really high damage, high impact, low risk champion. If you're against a melee mid as this champion, you'll have a pretty good time, but make sure that you watch out for both Fizz and Sylas. These champions have good matchups into her. One mistake against these champions will leave you reeling, but otherwise Ori will remain in this tier for a while. Instead of the normal Tristana, we're actually going to be shaking it up with Talon this patch. Talon beats most of the meta junglers in a 1v1, has good matchups into both Sylas and Fizz, and can abuse Axiom Arc second for permanent ults. Axiom Arc, in my opinion, is one of the stronger items in the game right now. It looks like it's heading towards a nerf. I would recommend that you pick up Talon to abuse this item. It's easier to do it on Talon than something like Zed because Talon has inbuilt wave clear. This champ is easy to play, just learn how to pop your bleed, go to the website to find out how, and then roam at the proper time. Zed is also a champion that I would place in this tier normally due to how OP the Ravenous Hydra build is, but Lissandra, Sylas, and Vex being strong keep them from being completely dominant. You do actually have to finish your Hydra before you're able to exert yourself on the map as Zed. For this reason, he is not an OP tier. This keeps him below all the other picks listed. Stay away from Yasuo this patch, he gets eaten alive by every meta mid here. This champion simply cannot function into a lot of the others listed. Bot lane is our next role on the list. Oh, bot lane, what has happened to you? Shiv has been nerfed again, widening the gap between crit and Trinity of users even more unless you're Jhin. Jhin is our new king of bot lane. This champion's ultimate buff is so strong I can't even express it enough in words. You need to get out there and play him right now. Both lethality and crit Jhin are super good, but the damage buff to his R has made it so you only need to land 3 out of 4 shots with no prior damage to kill squishies or other AD carries. Dear lord, is Jhin strong now. I would play lethality into all squishy teams, make sure that you run Dark Harvest, and then crit into a team that has any sort of bruiser or tanks that you have to be hitting. If you ever land a root W into 3 of your shots, your target will die on this champion right now. He is completely overbuffed. I would not be surprised if these changes were reverted. Ashe is still without a doubt the strongest ADC in the game when it comes to her combination of utility and damage. However, Ashe is team reliant. She has an answer for almost everything. Tanks go on hit, bruisers can't reach you due to her slows, and are assassins. What Ashe, however, does not have an answer to is people feeding in solo queue against these assassins. Unfortunately for Ashe, this isn't enough. Jhin still reigns supreme as a blind pick for this reason. Vayne sits in OP tier. The Shiv nerf actually didn't hurt her at all. Shiv into Trinity is still the way to go on this champion. Her 1v1s are godlike. She basically always scales right now, and she does well into Jhin. If the enemy team doesn't pick obscenely high harass, there is no better carry for playing independently. Ezreal is dominating bot lane due to his decent early game, immense scaling, and his ability to go Sheen items. Trinity Murm on it, as is Essence Reaver Duskblade Ezreal. It's really up to you here. You can play the lethality build into squishy teams and then the Trinity Muramana build into teams that you are not confident against or bruisers. Pick this champion when you don't trust your support, or if you want to kite the enemy team heavily, just make sure that you weave auto attacks instead of only spamming Q. If you do not weave auto attacks at all, this champion is pretty weak, whereas sitting back and weaving auto attacks pushes him into OP tier for sure. Support has seen the least amount of change this patch. Rakan is being moved to our number 1 spot because he's super versatile, not banned as much as Blitz, and counters all of the assassins much harder. Bruisers are also super easy to peel as Rakan, giving him another advantage there. Blitzcrank is still without a doubt very strong, but not to the same level that Rakan is into other meta picks. He excels at creating 4v5s, punishing people for being out of position, but not so much at being engaged on. One well-placed hook changes the course of a game, and he counters both Bard and Senna. For these reasons, he's still really good, but the shift to assassins in the jungle have knocked him down a minuscule peg. Bard, frankly, is busted. Don't let his silly playstyle distract you from just how overpowered this champion is. He is a menace this patch, completely overbuffed. You can build basically anything on him as long as you go Guardian as your keystone. Just make sure that you don't tilt your ADC too hard. There is definitely a fine line between roaming too much and not roaming enough on this champ. For this reason, I would not recommend him over the other champions, but when you master Bard, I would rate him as like a top 3 support in the game right now. Senna is out in force since her buffs. She has a massive pick rate, high win rate, huge damage, and does quite well for herself against most of these melees. 1 W is all it takes to blow somebody up now, so just make sure to play a bit more passively until you actually need to commit. Thresh is stable at 51.5% win rate overall since his buffs. Make sure that you take Guardian on him to increase his win rate to a massive 54%. When played this way, Thresh is the highest win rate, highest pick rate support in all of League of Legends. Abuse him while you can. However, make sure that you stay away from enchanters this patch. Senna and Blitz will absolutely eat you alive, and the prevalence of engaged and assassins are not doing you any favors either. Anyways, this was Unsung with Gamely. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next video.